Hey there, this is Jacob, and I'm going to be reading Proverbs 17 for you and going through it verse by verse. So here's Proverbs 17. I hope you enjoy and you're putting more and more of your trust in our Lord Jesus Christ. So Proverbs 17 says, "Better is a dry morsel and quietness with it than a house full of feasting with strife. The servant who acts wisely will rule over a son who acts shamefully, and will share in the inheritance among brothers. The refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests hearts. An evildoer listens to wicked lips. A liar pays attention to a destructive tongue. He who mocks the poor taunts his maker. He who rejoices at calamity will not go unpunished. Grandchildren are the crown of old men, and the glory of sons is their fathers. Excellent speech is not fitting for a fool, much less are lying lips to a prince. A bribe is a charm in the sight of its owner. Wherever he turns, he prospers. He who conceals a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates intimate friends. A rebuke goes deeper into one who has understanding than 100 blows into a fool. A rebellious man seeks only evil, so a cruel messenger will be sent against him. Let a man meet a bear robbed of her cubs, rather than a fool in his folly. He who returns evil for good, evil will not depart from his house. The beginning of strife is like letting out water, so abandon the quarrel before it breaks out. He who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous, both of them alike are an abomination to the Lord. Why is there a price in the hand of a fool to buy wisdom when he has no sense? A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. A man lacking in sense pledges and becomes a guarantor in the presence of his neighbor. He who loves transgression loves strife. He who raises his door seeks destruction. He who has a crooked mind finds no good, and he who is perverted in his language falls into evil. He who sires a fool does so to his sorrow, and the father of a fool has no joy. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. A wicked man receives a bribe from the bosom to pervert the ways of justice. Wisdom is in the presence of the one who has understanding, but the eyes of a fool are on the ends of the earth. A foolish son is grief to his father, and bitterness to her who bore him. It is also not good to fine the righteous, nor to strike the noble for their uprightness. He who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is considered prudent." Lots of wisdom here in the Proverbs. Verse 1 just leads me to think of this Thanksgiving season. It says, "Better is a dry morsel and quietness with it than a house full of feasting and strife." Why would that be the case? A house full of feasting with strife, that would involve a lot of noise, a lot of tension, a lot of arrogance, a lot of pride coming out of the mouths of people speaking on their own account. And the opposite of that would be quietness house, just a place, maybe even alone, just a place that's quiet, where the thoughts are not all over the place and there's not like arrows and swords and spears coming out of people's mouths in a house full of strife. And I think of Thanksgiving and how that is probably could be the case for most families. But hopefully families are just filled with Thanksgiving. How about Thanksgiving for existence? How about that? Thanksgiving for sunshine, Thanksgiving for computers and things to do, and how about the Word, this love letter that God has blessed us with? Thanksgiving for people and families and eternity. for those who have the Spirit of Christ in their hearts. Verse 2, it says, a servant who acts wisely will rule over a son who acts shamefully. What does a son who acts shamefully look like? A son with no discretion, a son with maybe like a drunken spirit, doesn't know where he's going, acting shamefully, things you don't really want to promote. A son who's acting shamefully, and a servant who acts wisely will rule over him. Why is that the case? This is in the law of the Lord. It's in the Bible, because it's kind of common sense and wisdom to you would allot someone who has their head on straight and is filled with some wisdom than somebody who's just getting drunk all the time or just pouring out lies or just not giving care to his ways or even thinking or using the brain God has given him. And that servant who acts wisely will share in the inheritance among brothers, will share in the inheritance among other wise men. I just was thinking of the 3 wise men that went to meet Jesus in the manger. How there wasn't one, there was 3. They were all sharing in it together. And verse 3, it says, the refining pot is for silver, and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests hearts. The refining pot is something that's smaller. It's smaller than a furnace, and it can withstand heat, high pressure heat. But a furnace can also withstand a lot greater heat, and that's for gold. And the Lord tests hearts. Just be aware of the Lord in your life, and that He may send pop quizzes and tests and little things to see and reveal where your heart's at. And hopefully we pass them, but some of them we won't. But the correct thing to do would be alter our ego and change our behavior should we fail the test and for next time. And Lord, verse 4 says, an evildoer listens to wicked lips, and a liar pays attention to a destructive tongue. Going back to verse 1, it's a house full of feasting with strife. It's a bunch of noise. But here it says an evildoer listens to wicked lips. Why would an evildoer listen to wicked lips? Well, because it affirms everything that he's doing wrong. There's no correction in it. It's the way of the world. It's broad as the way that leads to destruction. And a liar pays attention. A liar tunes in to a destructive tongue. That's what a liar does. And so we're called to not pay attention to destructive tongue, and we're called to listen to God's Son. We're called to listen to Him and not to avoid His presence or to dodge what He wants to correct us in and speak to us about. And when we do that, if we do that, we're susceptible to listening to lies and wickedness, and we won't be paying attention to what His Son wants to speak to us, and instead we'll be listening to what the liars will say, what the liar says. And remember, Satan is the ultimate liar. He's the liar and deceiver, and he will lie. That's his native language, his native tongue. Satan, that's what Satan speaks. And so we're to be in the Word, studying the Word, listening to His voice. And my sheep know my voice, and they listen to me. Again, and God, when Jesus was baptized, the Spirit descended upon Him like a dove. He says, "This is my Son in whom I love, and I'm well pleased." And then it gives the command. It says, "Listen to Him." How often do we see in the Proverbs it says, "My son, listen carefully to my words. Listen to my instruction. Listen, listen, listen." Stop and listen. If you're ever just in a bind, just stop, pray, and listen. Stop and listen. And the verse that comes to mind is, "Be slow to speak and quick to listen." Let us be quick to listen. If not, we're going to be listening to errant stuff that doesn't mean anything. Verse 5, he who mocks the poor taunts his maker. Jesus, he didn't live in a bunch of wealth. He became, for our sake, he became poor for our sakes. And, he borrowed a donkey that he rode on. He wasn't a materially wealthy person. And that's what the God of the universe did. He became poor so that we can be made rich in God. Verse 6, it says, grandchildren are the crown of old men. Old men get to see a legacy if God allows them to live that long. And the glory of sons is their fathers. There's a big emphasis here on fathers, this verse. Being a father is a high calling. As a role model, as a friend, as a lover, as a leader, or a pastor or shepherd of a family, and a protector. And it's a huge pandemic in the United States and all over the world to have fathers not fulfilling their calling and role as a father to their kids, to love them and teach them the word and shower on them love and protection and grace and friendship too. I just love the thought of dad dates and the fact that I've heard that before, where fathers would take their children on to dates like once a month or weekly, or just paying attention to them, like our Father in heaven would pay attention to us should we want to go talk to him, and he would give us our full attention. And at least that's kind of what I've discovered in my relationship with my Heavenly Father. Verse 7 says, excellent speech is not fitting for a fool, much less are lying lips to a prince. Excellent speech. That's something that we should be welcoming. Verse 8 says, a bribe is a charm in the sight of its owner. Wherever he turns, he prospers. He who conceals a transgression seeks love. And a reminder of the verse is, love covers over a multitude of sins. So let us be just givers of love and grace in helping our brothers in the Lord recover from their sins and recover from their ailings and things that deter them and hurt them. And verse 9 says, but he who repeats a matter separates intimate friends. Let's not make the same mistake twice. And if we do, let's not make it 3 times. And if we do it again, let's not make it 4 times. And the verse that comes to mind is people came and asked the Lord, how many times shall I forgive my neighbor? He says 7 times. And he says, no, I tell you 70 times 7. In other words, just keep on forgiving, keep on forgetting, and keep allowing grace to be poured out in your life for those around you who commit wrongful acts and say things that aren't cool. Speaking of cool, 27, it says, he who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. A cool spirit is like, think of like the Laodicean church in Revelation. He says, you're neither hot nor cold. And if your spiritual climate is cold and cool, it's like a refreshing cold drink. It's like easy to drink down. It's welcoming. It's like, that's refreshing. And that's the man who has a cool spirit within him. And that's someone you want to be around because they have understanding. They possess that. In verse 28 it says, even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is considered prudent. One of the favorite quotes by Ray Stedman that I've heard in my life is, it's better to have others think you're a fool than to open your mouth and remove all the doubt. So there's some real wisdom here in putting a restraint on our words and putting a covering over our mouth. When I think of restraint, I think of like a spaghetti filter or something you would not let all the stuff go through. So it's just some Proverbs and some wisdom. Hope you enjoy and are blessed and it speaks to you.